Hello and welcome to this Upgrade Your OET lesson. This is especially for UK Foundation Programme students or any of you who need to get 400 in your OET speaking test.
We'll look at what you need to do in order to achieve that.
But first of all, who needs to get that 400 score? Well, of course, it's doctors applying to enrol on a UK Foundation programme. You need to get that score of 400 in each part. But this video is also going to be useful for any of you who need to register with the GMC or Irish Medical Board or any of the other medical boards, and you need at least 350 in each part of your test. That's a grade B to be able to register, but this is particularly aimed at those of you who need 400. We're going to be looking at that finesse, what just pushes you over that grade boundary, 350, 360, 370, all the way up to 400. So we're going to do a very quick look at the assessment criteria and also what it takes to score 400. So we're just going to be focusing on the things that students quite often go wrong on. What is just stopping them getting that higher score? For those of you who don't know me, hello, my name's Sona. I'm your online OET tutor with Bose Learning. If you're coming back and watching another of these videos, hello again. As you'll remember, I'm a premium preparation provider of the OET with Bose Learning. Okay, so let's get started. As I say, we're going to do a very quick introduction to the OET. If you know this, if you're confident with this already, just skip past. I've time-stamped it for you, so you should be able to just flip forward into the good stuff. But if you need to know a little bit about the OET and what it is, here we go. So the Occupational English Test, or the OET, is an English language test for healthcare professionals. And as I say, it's recognised by various healthcare bodies across the world. Now, you may be wondering why a British or a native speaker needs to take this. Well, if you've been studying abroad, of course, you still speak English absolutely perfectly, but you need to prove this in some way. And this is where the test comes in. It assesses the language communication skills of healthcare professionals. But for you, it really shows your expertise in doing this. And as these courses are oversubscribed, as the foundation year is oversubscribed anyway, they really want you, they need you to get this 400 or above in each part. So, the test itself is divided into 4 subtests. We've got the reading, which you can see on the screen there. It's made up of 3 parts. We've got the listening, again, that's 3 parts. We've then got the writing, where you're given a set of case notes. This sometimes causes issues, so I've also done a video about this. You'll be able to click onto that, hopefully, somewhere. You'll see the link. And then you've got the speaking, which is what we're looking at today. So the way the speaking works is you get a little warm-up. This is with the interlocutor. The interlocutor is not actually going to be examining you, they're just going to be playing the role of 2 different patients in your 2 different role plays. So you'll have a little chat to the interlocutor, you'll go through the basics, introducing your name, you'll show them your ID, all of that kind of thing, and they'll ask you some questions, things like, why have you decided to become a doctor? Or what specialism are you hoping to go into? That kind of thing. What's a typical day in your life as a medical student? That's really just to get you used to their voice and them used to your voice as well. And of course, it's to break down any fears, any barriers that any of those exam nerves, hopefully, is not going to be assessed. So just get used to them and they can get used to your voice as well. They'll then give you a role play card. You'll have 3 minutes to prepare for this, and then you'll launch into your first role play. That will last 5 minutes. This whole thing will be repeated again. As I say, each role play will last 5 minutes. So actually, it's not a great deal of time for each role play. Okay, so let's take a look at the assessment criteria. In this video, we're not going to go through everything with a fine tooth comb, but we're just going to be looking a little bit more microscopically at the things that do make that difference, that send students up to that 400 band score grade. Just so that you have an overview, if you don't already know it, the way that the OET speaking is assessed is in two sections. The first one is the linguistic criteria. There are 4 categories here, and each are marked out of a 6. To get those 400 scores, you of course need to be getting 5s and 6s throughout, really. And the assessment criteria here looks at intelligibility, fluency, appropriateness of language, and resources of grammar and expression. Now, as native speakers, most of you have no problems with this at all. For those of you who are looking for the higher grades and maybe English is not your L1, then really focusing on your linguistic criteria will help you enormously, because this carries a greater weight for the test, basically. But I do want to pick out a couple of things which do make a difference, just in those marginal grades, and I'll do so in a moment. The second half of the assessment looks at clinical communication, and here the scores are out of 3, and there are 5 different categories: relationship building, incorporating and understanding the patient's perspective, providing structure, gathering information, and giving information. If you want more information about all of this, take a look at our other videos which go into this in far more detail. But as I say, I want to pick out a couple of things which really do push those grades higher. And the first one comes from the linguistic criteria, and that's intelligibility. Now, in the actual criterion, it tells you that to get that 6, you need to be easily understood. Of course, if you have an L1 accent, no problem. Everyone's got a different accent. That's fine. That's perfectly wonderful, as long as it doesn't affect intelligibility. What we're looking at here is prosodic features, the stress, the intonation. And then another thing which is really important is the appropriateness of language in connection with register, tone, and lexis. And here we have lay terms. So what do you have to do to get those higher grades then? In terms of intelligibility, make sure your tone of voice reflects what you're saying. We're not just going through a tick box or box ticking exercise or a tick boxing exercise, however you want to put it. So if you say, "I'm so sorry to hear that," make sure your voice says it, not just the words. If you're asking the patient, is it okay to move on to the next part of the consultation, make sure again you're doing that for a reason. It's not just ticking that criteria, which of course you have to do, but make sure your voice carries the same meaning. So don't just be formulaic, don't just be generic. Use your voice to modulate what you're saying effectively. Then, appropriateness of language. Make sure that you're using lay language effectively. You don't want to cause your patient undue concern by using really technical medical language. You don't want to have any breakdown in communication. So think about what medical terms are given to you in your role play card, and think about how you can explain that in everyday, easily accessible lay language. Those are the 2 main things that the OET have told us really make a difference in getting those 400 grades. Now, in terms of clinical communication, again, I just want to pick out a couple of things about information gathering and information giving. So again, for information gathering, the way you get the higher scores is to have a balance of voices. This is what the OET have told me as a premium preparation provider. They know what candidates are missing, and this is one thing that keeps coming up. In the role plays, there's a tendency for candidates to just keep talking. It's a speaking exam, you think. I have to speak. But no, actually, this role play is mimicking a real life consultation. So you have to have a balance between yourself and your patient. And the way that you do that is by asking lots of open questions, especially at the start. So you're inviting the patient to comment, to give their own understanding, to tell you what's wrong with them. So, for example, you might hear a doctor greet the patient and say something like, "From the notes, I see that you have been having sleeping problems. Is that right? Okay, how long has this been going on for?" So, absolutely fine. It's great that you're using the notes. You're kicking the role play off straight away by saying, you know what the problem is, it's sleeping problems. Is that right? You're checking with them. But the problem is the first question that you've really asked is a closed question. How long has this been going on for? So while the grammar is fine, while the structure is fine, while your voice and intonation might be fine, there could be a better way of starting the consultation. And that would be something like asking an open question. Can you tell me more about this? So start in the same way. From the notes, I see that you have been having sleeping problems. Is that right? Oh, okay. Can you tell me more about this? So you're letting the patient talk for a little while to tell you about what's been going on. So keep those open questions in mind, especially at the beginning. Again, in terms of balance of voices, make sure you include the patient in your conversation. Find out what information they already have or what they expect to gain. For example, if you're telling your patient, I think you might benefit from something called cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT, you can ask them, have you heard about that before? Invite them into the consultation. Ask them, do they know it? Maybe you're using something technical like insomnia. It's a fairly medical word. Ask them, do you know what insomnia is? Don't just assume they know it. And equally, don't just assume they don't know it. So even if you are using something quite technical, then quite medical, use the medical expression. Don't assume they know it or they don't know it. Don't try and dumb down to them, but ask them, check, have you heard about that before? The other thing the OET have told us is that it's really important not to miss any opportunity to explore patient concerns, even if they're not so obvious. This will help with your information gathering skills and your relationship building as well. Here is an example for you. In the role play, you might say, I think you might benefit from something called cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT. Have you heard about that before? And the patient says, oh no, I'm not sure. I haven't got time to attend things like that with the kids. And you say, oh, well, perhaps you can try 1 or 2 sessions. Very nice. You're not being judgmental. You're offering to give them 1 or 2 sessions. But again, there is an opportunity missed here. Why is the patient worried about the kids? Maybe the patient is overwhelmed, maybe they don't have enough support. So don't miss that opportunity to explore this. Start by saying, oh, is there someone who could help out for an hour or so with the kids here or there? So perhaps you can try 1 or 2 sessions. So check, what's going on? Why has the patient got no time with the kids? Do they not have any support? Any family support, any friends, neighbours who can help them? If not, again, that's something you can explore. So don't miss any opportunity to explore patient concerns, even if it's not really obvious, even if it's not on your role play card. Just make sure you're fully extending all of those interactions as you would do in real life, really. Now, in terms of information giving, make sure you're chunking your information into nice little bite-sized pieces of chocolate, if you like. So don't just rattle off the information you have to give them. Make sure you're chunking that into manageable portions. And really importantly, pause. Allow your patient time to absorb the information and to ask you questions. That's so important. Again, it's this idea of that balance of voices. So give your patient that time that space to think and to ask you questions. So use pausing effectively. The examiner's not going to think you've paused because you've forgotten what to say. They will know you've paused to give your patient that time to think, to ask those all important questions. So when you're giving information, chunk and pause. So my tips then for getting those higher scores: make sure you're including your patient in the consultation. Find that balance, find that correct space where your patient can explore ideas, and remember that scores can be vastly improved if there is a sense of shared speaking time. Even though it's a speaking role play, give your patient that time, that space to think, to ask you questions, to tell you what they want to tell you. So thank you very much for listening to that. I hope that's helped. If you'd like to have a practice yourself and would like to purchase a mock speaking test, then what would happen is we arrange a time for the speaking mock test. We go through the mock in exam conditions, and then you get written feedback from either myself or one of my colleagues, who are all premium preparation providers of the OET. If you like this video, I'd be so happy if you can help grow my channel by sharing it, giving it a like, and subscribing if you like. And why not watch one of my other videos right now? There's lots for you to watch, so I hope you do. Thanks very much. If you've got any questions, just put them in the comments box and I'll be happy to answer if I can. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.